Welcome back.
Yo,
So we are now at the intermission, or what I like to call the intermission, between levels 3 and 4. Just to recap, because our other co-commentator wasn't here, the Phoenix tracked down Manus Domini to find the lost 14th manuscript of the Nag Hammadi, which was supposedly given to them by P. Volker because he was afraid for his life. Um, when he tracked down the leader, he found out that the Nag Hammadi Codex had never been in their possession and was in possession of the Dante and his circle of friends. So the Phoenix then hunted down Dante and his circle of friends and got a possession of the missing Nag Hammadi Codex, which is supposedly supposed to give him eternal life. Or so he says. Who the hell knows? So we've got 12 emails. Pretty long ones. So this is probably going to be a full part full of emails. Yay!
we'll see.
These revelations shed new light on the case. Since you didn't keep track of the first investigation, I'll try to sum up the facts as clearly as I can. In 1945, a bundle of ancient codices were accidentally discovered, among which included the infamous Gospel according to Thomas. These works have taken a fantastic journey, dispersed across the four corners of the world, and a number of them wound up in the black market. Years would pass before archaeologists would manage to reunite them at the Coptic Museum in Cairo. For a long time, people believed that the bundle comprised 13 codices. However, a false rumor arose that there existed a 14th codex, eventually nicknamed the Accursed Book because it appeared to bring misfortune upon whoever laid claim to it. There has been much speculation surrounding its contents, the most outlandish of which claims the codex is a testament written by Jesus' hand himself. People continue to believe that archaeologist Peter Volker, the subject of the film, had the famous codex in his possession right before his mysterious disappearance during a trip to Rhodes. However, since Volker knew he was in danger at the time, he surely hid the codex someplace safe. Why did he entrust it to the circle of friends of Dante, the few remaining heirs to an old secret society? Was he himself a member of this society? Whatever the case, just as we suspected, the three murders in Andalusia were surely committed by the Phoenix. We have to focus more closely on the new ritual he's adopted, dismembered bodies, parchment left in mounts, etc., to clearly understand the logic behind his current activities. As for me, despite all this, I'm applying for a profiler position at the FBI. Christine. Or however you want to say her name. Okay, let me... No... Make this busy. Don't want blooping all day long. Okay. The Shroud of Turin. On level 2, the Phoenix claims that the face and body visible as a negative on the famous Shroud of Turin are those of Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Order of the Temple, burned at the stake on March 18, 1314. The mystery of the Shroud has always elicited much commentary, but this theory, among others, is not devoid of interest. Its believers, in particular Christopher Knight and Robert Lomath, the authors of the book The Second Messiah, advance some strong arguments that I'll try to go over with you. First, how might Jacques de Molay have left his imprint on the cloth? Everyone knows that in the Middle Ages, the Inquisition used torture to extract confessions from those accused of heresy. For the Templars who were accused of having disavowed Christ, the Inquisition particularly liked crucifixion. The tortured were whipped and then nailed to a door with the crown of thorns thrust on their heads. By inflicting on the Templars the same wounds as Jesus, it served as a manifestation of imminent justice. In 1307, the Grand Inquisitor in France, Guillaume de Paris, used this form of torture to extract confessions from Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, who provided evidence of this 2 years later by exhibiting the marks of his torture before the members of a papal commission responsible for ruling on the Order of the Temple's guilt. It's possible that after a particularly brutal session, Jacques de Molay's body, left for dead, was covered with a sheet by his cellmates, setting in motion the chemical process that explains how the imprint on the shroud may have been formed. Next, how could this sheet marked with Jacques de Molay's impression wind up on exhibit to the general public? It's important to know that the shroud's existence is undisputed only from 1357 on, the date of its first exhibition in the Sainte Maria Church in Liray in Champagne, France. The shroud was put on display at the time by Jean de Vergès, not long after the death of her first husband, Geoffrey de Charnay, who was its owner. Now, this Geoffrey de Charnay, who died in 1356 at the Battle of Poitiers, was none other than the grandson of John de Charnay, the brother of another Geoffrey de Charnay, the Order of the Temple's preceptor of Normandy, who was burned at the stake beside Jacques de Molay in 1314. Here again, it's possible that the sheet used to cover Jacques de Molay's body was kept by Geoffrey de Charnay, the Grand Master's cellmate, and then handed down to his brother Jean, who with his other effects after his death. Finally, is this theory scientifically credible? In 1988, 3 independent laboratories performed carbon-14 dating on the samples of the Shroud of Turin. These sensitive analyses were particularly well conducted and meticulously completed. For details, I give you the University of Lyon's site, and provided clear-cut matching results. The fabric of the shroud can be dated to between 1260 and 1390, plus or minus 10 years, with a 95 degree of certainty. These results being definitive proof that the Shroud of Turin's fabric is medieval. Knowing that the imprint on the shroud cannot be the work of a forger, especially in that era, we can declare not only is the theory defended by the Phoenix credible, but it's in fact the only one that satisfies all the scientific conditions. Sincerely, Theo Makarios. Ooh, the Shroud of Turin comes into play. If you don't know what that is. Theo Makarios makes an interesting point. Returning to our investigation, it's also worth noting that Dante, him again, visited Paris several times during his exile. He may have even met Jacques de Molay, Grand Master of the Templars at the time, right before his arrest in 1307. Some theories even place Dante in the crowd that witnessed Jacques de Molay's torture in front of the Notre Dame Cathedral 7 years later. Very odd. This all brings us back to a secret society. Oh boy. Regarding Gerd Hank, I came across this 2003 article by Francis Maleret, Liberation, about the case. 3 crimes involving the same strange characteristics have been committed since last August in Germany. The ritualistic nature of the crimes has sent some of Germany's top experts, Gerd Hank, in pursuit. Encounter. It was the little friends who found it. The bouncing super ball startled passerby in this cobblestone alley in the St. Elizabeth Church district in Marburg, Germany. It bounced through the narrow opening of a cellar window and fell into the basement of an empty building under reconstruction. Fitting his feet through the bars, little Franz pushed on the window. He was then struck by a ghastly smell of rotting flesh. Little Franz will remember this moment for the rest of his life. That's how Lieutenant Gerd Hank is. He speaks of such horrors in a neutral tone. 42 years old, profiler for the Federal Criminal Police, trained by the American FBI and famous for having captured, among others, the Dusseldorf Treasury agent who took himself for the reincarnation of Torquemada. He eventually confessed to dismembering 30 fraudulent taxpayers with another 84 suspected cases. Hank casually hands you the photos. Want to take a look? He asked, as if they were a family vacation. No thanks. We've just shared a breakfast as typical and rich as the half-timbered house of his Lutheran grounds, and we intend to keep it that way. Coldly continues. Hild Gardner, student, 22 years old, strangled, not raped, apparently tortured. The body presented hundreds of burns of every size. We're still investigating. He puts the photos away without looking at them. He's familiar with the tiniest detail. In the carbon dust was written with victim's blood, Sol Invictus. Hank offers the clue in passing, as if it were mere detail. You know, it's significant. It's a sign we're dealing with a cerebral rather than sexual serial killer. With his world-weary smile, Lieutenant Hank looks like he's seen such cases. And indeed, he has seen others, such as in November at Wittenberg, in the basement of home around the corner from the Collegium Augustum where Luther taught. The body of Karl Brettner was discovered, the extremist ultra-Catholic host of a webzine critiquing European decadence. The body was in an advanced state, also strangled, this time with an olive wood rosary. Hank attributes nothing to chance. Handcrafted rosary, produced on a Greek island. Very well made. High quality. We don't doubt it. The political angle has been ruled out. We've studied Brettner's life down to his final moments. Hank recites as follows. No perversion. Normally these Catholics are attracted to damnation, but not him. Brettner was simply our local version of a god nut. So, Hank pulls out the other photos. No thanks. Sol Invictus was carved here too on the stairway banister. Despite the corpse's state of decomposition, we can make out small esoteric inscriptions. That's when they called me. His lips pursed slightly. The killer carved the message with a piece of upper jawbone. Regarding the third murder, discovered the day before yesterday in Frankfurt, and only a stone's throw away from the Stadt and... Oh, dear God. No, I ain't saying that. I'm gonna massacre that. The lieutenant acknowledges he has less to go on at this point. The victim, a young man, remains unknown. It's still with the medical examiner. I'm awaiting his report. Hank looks through an everyday notebook. Preliminary report. Likely burns. Symbols resembling those in Marburg and Wittenberg on still identifiable places of the body. And then Sol Invictus again. Carved into the wooden door with a piece of... We interrupt the lieutenant. That's okay. Once more, he refuses his pile of photographs. We may need to get some air soon. We wonder if the lieutenant realizes he shouldn't discuss his line of work too closely with people. Focused, he summarizes. It's probably the exact same ritual. Isolated victims, strangulation, and burns. The esoteric symbols and expressions Sol Invictus. Any questions? He adds, unflappable. Despite our discomfort, he continues with the same cold smile. Very well. I've got a meeting now with your Italian colleagues. I'm talking to the press because I can't waste time. I've decided to provoke this monster in the hopes he'll make a mistake. Silence, then. I'll nail him. And then suddenly we shudder. We're afraid as much at the idea of crossing this serial killer's path as at the realization that Lieutenant Hank's eyelids never close upon his pale blue eyes. The article is entitled, I'll Nail Him. What a character, that Gerd. If you don't, were you there? No, you weren't there for the video. Jack called in Gerd Hank after he knew the Phoenix committed the murders. He was following with Manuela.
Okay.
How much time do we have left? Oh my god.
Start on Bibliothek.
Don't even. Like I said, ugh.
Universitat Bibliothek? I don't know.
I received numerous questions on the subject of the famous secret society, the Faithful of Love, of which Dante was a famous member, and of the little-known link between Dante and the Templars. What exactly should we make of it? When founded, the Fidelity of Love was an initiatory organization whose ultimate goal was attaining illumination, that is, access to the passionate love that allows direct communication with God. In particular, it brought together mainly men of letters and artists. Like any self-respecting secret society, we know little of its history, but it seems that the expression Fidele de Amor was the name Dante and his friend Guido Cavalcanti called each other in the late 13th century. That said, the movement was doubtlessly formed considerably earlier, at the time of the First Crusades and the first diplomatic relations between the Orient and the West. Although they were rivals, we now know that the Templars and the Hashishins respected one another, and secret agreements were even signed by the two parties. In the course of these exchanges, the Templars were introduced to Sufism, Muslim esotericism, whose ideas were fairly close to the chivalric values of their order. Moreover, this intelligence with the enemy would come back to haunt them later during their trial. The origin of the fidelity of love sits therefore at the crossroads between two cultures, one Western and one poetic, inherent to the long tradition of the troubadours and provincial chauviers, and on the other oriental mystic, originating with the Sufi masters and imported to Europe by the Knights of the Temple returning from the Crusades. Officially, the Fidelity of Love disappeared in the West at the end of the Middle Ages, with some of its members choosing to emigrate to Syria or Egypt in the Middle East, while others ultimately choosing the harshest of clandestinize. However, with supporting evidence, we can now affirm that it simply went underground and remains in force in the West even today. On this note, allow me a little caveat toward your internet research. Beware of sites from so-called Neo-Templar organizations, self-proclaimed heirs to the values of Temple, or the Faithful of Love. In the majority of cases, these are only commercial sites created by charlatans who won't hesitate at perverting history for the most basely mercantile goals. Returning to the link between Dante, the Faithful of Love, and the Templars, the poet himself spoke of it best in his own work. First in the Vita Nova, where he described very precisely the different stages of initiation to the Fidelity of Love, and then in the Divine Comedy, where the guide leading to paradise was none other than Bernard de Clairvaux, Saint Bernard, who was the inspiration behind and drafter of the Order of the Temple's regulations in 1128. Finally, the Hashishins, the Sufis, the Templars, Dante, and the Faithful of Love all had in common the same utopiast vision, that of unifying the three great monotheistic religions, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, into the single and universal one based on peace and love without any intermediary between men and gods. Sincerely, Theo Markrios. P.S. For more information on this subject, I recommend the work of René Guénon, East and West, The Esotericism of Dante, Insights into Christian Esotericism, etc. Wow. So this one is super long, and we're out of time. That means we're going to have to complete this next part. I cannot believe that. See ya.